I saved them from bankruptcy 3 times, but they still made the Margot's core chat to cut me from the will. That night, I found the security cam photos that shut their lawyer up. By Friday at 9 a.m., $90,000 was rerouted because of one sentence I said, and the one person who finally took my side. My name is Sloan Whitaker. I am 32 years old, and by profession, I am a financial consultant at North Star Ledger Group. This means I spend my days organizing the chaotic financial lives of other people, translating their anxieties about the future into neat columns, protected assets, and projected yields. I am good at it. I am precise. I am the person people call when they need a complex problem solved quietly and efficiently. This particular Tuesday, however, I was not at my desk. I was at my mother's house in Gray Harbor, the town where I grew up. The reason for the 2-hour drive from the city was, as it had always been, functional. Sloan, honey, my mother, Margot, had said over the phone the night before, her voice pitched in that specific key of practiced helplessness. My phone is just being impossible. This new banking application, it's all too much. I know you're busy, but I just can't make it work. I was the family's designated fixer, the unpaid IT support, the on-call financial advisor, the keeper of all passwords, and the preparer of taxes. I was, in short, the useful daughter. I parked in the cracked driveway, the coastal air, damp and heavy with salt, clinging to my clothes the moment I stepped out of the car. I bypassed the front door, walking straight into the kitchen as I had done my entire life. The house was a museum of the life they lived before I became successful enough to fix things. The afternoon sun, weak and watery, filtered through the same yellowing lace curtains that had hung in the kitchen window since my childhood. They cast dusty, muted stripes across the linoleum floor. The kitchen itself was a testament to inertia. The wallpaper, a cheerful pattern of tiny yellow daisies from the 1990s, was peeling at the seams above the stove. The air held the permanent, layered scent of old coffee, Windex, and the faint, sweet smell of the hand soap Margot always used. Everything was exactly as it had been. Every object was frozen in time. Margot was sitting at the worn oak table, her brow furrowed in genuine distress over the glowing screen of her smartphone. "Sloan, thank goodness," she sighed, relief flooding her face. "It wants a password, but then it says my old one isn't complex enough. What does that even mean?" "It just needs a capital letter and a number." "Mom," I said. I pulled up the chair opposite her, the one whose leg always wobbled. My sister Tessa had cracked it during some high school drama, and like everything else in this house, it was never fully repaired, just accommodated. I took the phone from her. Her hands were soft, nails perfectly manicured. "I just don't understand why they make everything so difficult," she murmured, getting up to pour herself another cup of coffee from the pot that was perpetually lukewarm. "It's for security." "Mom," I said, my fingers flying across the screen. I reset her password using the standard formula I'd created for her, one she could never remember. I navigated the App Store and began the download for the new bank application. I was patiently explaining the concept of two-factor authentication, using the simple analogies I had perfected for my less savvy clients, when her phone vibrated in my hand. It wasn't my phone, it was hers. I should not have looked. But the notification banner slid down from the top of the screen, bold and clear. It was a new message group. The name hit me first. A small, cold punch just below my sternum. Margot's Core. I had never seen that group name before. I was in the family chat. I was in Whitaker Updates. I was, it seemed, not considered part of the core. The preview of the message was right there, stark and brutal. It was from my aunt. "Just confirming, the $90,000 from Grandma Genevieve Alder's fund disperses this Friday. We're splitting it evenly for Tessa and Bryn. Just remember, don't tell Sloan." The words floated on the screen. $90,000, Friday, Tessa and Bryn. Don't tell Sloan. My bloodstream turned to ice. My heart, usually a steady, reliable metronome, gave a painful, sickening lurch, and then began to hammer against my ribs like a trapped bird. The silence in the kitchen suddenly felt pressurized, heavy. I could hear the electric hum of the old refrigerator, the slow, rhythmic drip of the faucet my stepfather, Ed, still had not fixed, the sound of Margot stirring her coffee. I looked up. She was oblivious, staring out the window at the overgrown hydrangeas, her back to me. She hadn't seen it. My professional training took over. The part of me that sits across from clients who have just lost everything, the part that analyzes risk without visible emotion. Observe, do not react, gather data. I force my hands to remain steady, with a single, smooth motion. I tapped the notification, clearing it from the screen as if it were junk mail. I forced a breath into my lungs. "Okay," I said. My voice sounded terrifyingly normal, perhaps a fraction too thin. "The app is installed. Now we just need to link your checking account." "Oh, wonderful," Margot said, turning back to me, her face bright with genuine relief. "You're a lifesaver. Sloan, you know, I'd be completely lost without you." The irony was so thick, so acidic, I could have choked on it, lost without me. While I guided her hand to show her where to tap, my mind was running a different set of calculations. I was the one who had consolidated Grandma Genevieve's assets after her stroke. I was the one who found the high-yield savings account for the estate's trust fund. I was the one who filed the complex estate taxes, navigating the forms while Tessa was too emotional and Bryn was too overwhelmed by her art school midterms. For the last decade, I had been the family's unpaid financial manager, the password keeper, the tax preparer, the emergency contact, the one who sorted out the insurance claims. When Ed's 401k took a 30% dive during the market correction, I was the one who spent an entire weekend rebalancing his portfolio, explaining diversification until I was hoarse. When Tessa needed to refinance her car and her credit was shot, I was the one who found the low-interest loan and co-signed for it. I was the load-bearing wall of this family, and they were actively, secretly, planning to gut the house while I was still holding up the roof. "Mom," I said, keeping my voice perfectly level. "My phone's almost dead. Can I borrow yours to check my email quickly? I forgot my charger in the car." It was a clumsy lie, but she was already focused on the new, shiny app icon. "Of course, honey. Take your time." She went back to her coffee, pleased. My fingers felt like stone as I opened her text messages. My thumb hovered over the group chat named Margot's Core. I tapped it. The history loaded. It was not a new chat. It went back months. "Tessa, Bryn really needs this to get the studio off the ground. She's so talented. She just needs the startup capital." "Bryn, I just feel bad about Sloan. Shouldn't we at least mention it?" Margot, "Sloan is fine. She has her big career. She doesn't need this like you two do. This is for helping you get on your feet." Tessa, "Exactly. She's successful. This money is for the rest of us. She just put it in some account we can't touch." I scrolled up, my vision narrowing, the text blurring and sharpening, and then I saw the message that stopped my breathing. It was from Margot herself, dated 3 weeks ago. "It's just less complicated without Sloan. She gets so technical about everything. Grandma Genevieve wanted us to be happy, not to fill out paperwork. This is a family matter. Less complicated." I wasn't family, I was a complication. I kept scrolling, my mind racing, looking for the mechanism. How could they legally do this? Grandma Genevieve loved me. She was the one who had encouraged my head for numbers, the one who bought me my first calculator. She'd called me her little ledger. I found it, a message from my aunt again, the same one from the notification. The trust language is perfect. I had my lawyer look at it. It says the funds are to be distributed to her descendants at Margot's sole discretion. That means she has the final say. It's airtight. She can give it to whomever she sees fit for the family's well-being. Grandma let Margot allocate, that was the knife, my grandmother, in an attempt to make things simple, had given my mother the legal authority to erase me. A cold, heavy numbness settled over me. I handed the phone back. All set. Mom, you're good to go. The bank is linked. What would I do without you? She beamed, tapping the screen excitedly. I gathered my keys and my jacket. I have to get back to the city. Early meetings tomorrow. Oh, so soon? You just got here. The disappointment in her voice was real, but it was the disappointment of a user whose free service was ending. Traffic, I said, the word flat and metallic. You know how it is. The drive back was a blur. The sky opened up as I hit the interstate, a characteristic gray harbor deluge that turned the highway into a slick, gray river. The windshield wipers beat a frantic, hypnotic rhythm. Thwack thump, thwack thump. It matched the thought cycling in my head, a cold, hard realization that was finally settling into my bones, marrow deep. They don't love me. They love my function. They love Sloan the consultant. They love Sloan the fixer. They love Sloan who handles the unpleasantness. They do not love Sloan, the person, the woman who wanted, just once, to be asked about her life, not her portfolio management skills. When I'd gotten the promotion at North Star last year, Margot's first question was whether my new benefits included better long-term care insurance that she could possibly get in on. When I'd had a small piece of my photography published in an architectural digest, my one true passion, Tessa had said, "That's nice, but does it pay?" The rain hammered the roof of my car. I was their emergency contact, but I was not in the core. My apartment was dark when I arrived. I didn't turn on the overhead lights, just the small, warm lamp on my desk. My home is the antithesis of my mother's house. It is minimalist, modern, with clean lines and zero clutter. Every object has a purpose and a place. It is the one space in the world I fully control. In the far corner, standing on its tripod like a silent sentinel, sat my camera, a beautiful, heavy piece of German engineering. It was my one indulgence, my one passion, capturing the geometry of buildings, the way light interacts with concrete and steel, finding the soul in structures. To my family, it was Sloan's expensive little hobby, a useless expense. Why buy that thing when you could be saving for a down payment on a real house? Tessa had demanded last Christmas. All that money for pictures? Bryn needs new art supplies, you know. Margot had hinted, her voice laced with martyrdom. I ran a hand over the cold metal body of the camera. They had no idea who I was. I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. I created a new, encrypted folder. I titled it, The Core. Inside, I started a new document. I began to write, not with emotion, but as I would for a client audit. I listed the players, their roles in this system. Margot, mother, the matriarch, operates under the guise of the common good and protecting her children, uses emotional leverage to justify exclusion, the primary decision-maker and holder of the sole discretion. Tessa, sister, the golden child, deeply entitled, believes her needs, and by extension, her children's needs, supersede all others, sees my success not as something I earned, but as a family resource she should have access to. Bryn, sister, the artist, perpetually fragile, always in need of protection and funding, the designated victim who requires rescuing, usually by me. Ed, stepfather, the enabler, benefits from my labor, his 401k, but will side with Margot to maintain peace at all costs. I stared at the list. It was not a family. It was a corporate structure built on my uncompensated labor, and I had been its most vital and most invisible cog. My fingers twitched, instinctively moving toward the spreadsheet icon on my desktop. The old urge rose up, strong as a tide. Fix this. Open Excel. Run the numbers. Show them the compound interest they're losing. Create a viable business plan for Bryn. Optimize Tessa's debt-to-income ratio. I clenched my fist, my nails digging into my palm. For the first time in my 32 years, I stopped my hand. I would not fix this for them. I would not manage their expectations or clean up their financial mess. I would not be a tool. I picked up my phone. My hands were shaking now. the adrenaline of the drive wearing off, replaced by a cold, sharp rage. I thought about the conversation, the casual, cruel dismissal. Don't tell Sloan. I opened my laptop again. I used the Find My Device feature for my mother's phone, a feature I had, of course, set up for her. I logged into her cloud account. She would never notice. I navigated to her message backups. It took me less than 3 minutes. I found the Margot's core thread. I read it all again, the ice forming solid in my chest. It's just less complicated without Sloan. The $90,000. Don't tell Sloan. Grandma let Margot allocate. My cursor hovered. I systematically took a screenshot of every single incriminating message, the dates, the participants, the specific financial figures, the explicit conspiracy to exclude me. I saved each one as a separate image file. I named them, dated them, and placed them in the encrypted folder. Evidence 01, Evidence 02, Evidence 03. It was the first round of documentation. My audit had officially begun. The digital screenshots from my mother's phone were just the start. They were the confession. But I needed the corroborating evidence. I needed the architecture of their plan. The rage that had carried me home had now cooled, settling into a familiar glacial focus. It was the same focus I brought to a hostile audit. You do not let emotion cloud the data. You simply follow the numbers. My first stop was the family cloud storage. The irony was bitter. I had set up the account 5 years ago. I paid the $40 annual subscription fee. I had meticulously organized it, creating folders for tax documents, insurance policies, and home records, begging them to please, just use the system I built to make their lives easier. I was paying for the digital filing cabinet where they were hiding the knife they planned to use on me. I logged in. My access was, of course, unrestricted. I was the administrator. The main directory was clean, just as I had left it. Insurance, taxes, photos. But nestled between photos and recipes was a new folder, one I had not created. G.A. Trust Docs. The name was a clumsy attempt at misdirection, using our grandmother's initials, Genevieve Alder, as if I, the one who managed her entire estate, wouldn't recognize them. It was almost insulting in its amateurishness. I clicked it. The folder contained 3 files. My eyes went to the first one, Alder Trust, Discretion, PDF. I opened it. It was the final, executed copy of my grandmother's living trust, the one her lawyer had finalized, and I had apparently never been sent. I scrolled past the preamble, the definitions, the naming of my mother as successor trustee, my fingers, steady on the trackpad, navigated straight to the section on distributions, and there it was, highlighted in a faint, digital yellow, as if my mother had been studying it. Article 4.2, Distribution of Residual Trust Estate. Upon my death, the acting trustee shall distribute the remainder of the trust estate, both principal and income, to my then living descendants in such equal or unequal shares as my daughter, Margot Whitaker, shall determine in her sole and absolute discretion to be appropriate for their well-being. Sole and absolute discretion. There it was, the legal weapon, the clause that turned my grandmother's legacy into my mother's personal slush fund. My grandmother had trusted her to be fair. She had trusted her to see all 3 of her granddaughters. That trust was the flaw in the system, the vulnerability Margot was now exploiting. I took a full screen capture. I clicked File Info. Created, 7 months ago, last modified, 4 weeks ago, by Margot Whitaker. I screenshotted that. 2. Evidence. Or the weapon. I went back to the folder. The next file was named Bryn's Studio Plan, PDF. Curiosity, cold and sharp, made me click. It was not a PDF. It was a 5-page document made in a free word processor, filled with misaligned photos of Bryn's abstract paintings and watercolor sketches of pottery. The text was a rambling, emotional plea. A space to create and heal. Building a community of light, projected income, selling vibes. My financial consultant brain recoiled. There was no market analysis, no cost of goods sold, no projection of overhead, utilities, or insurance. The budget was a single line item. Studio startup, $45,000. It was a child's wish list, not a business plan, and they were going to fund it with my inheritance. I saved the file. I screenshotted the metadata. Evidence. 5. The flimsy motive. The third file was the most straightforward. Tessa, tuition fund, XLSX. I opened the spreadsheet. It was a simple ledger, one I recognized. I had built the template for Tessa years ago to track her own household budget, a template she had promptly ignored. Now, it was being used. There were 2 columns, source and amount. Under source, it read, G.A. Trust. Under amount, a single number, $45,000. $45,000, not a projection, not a plan. It was an entry, an allocation that had already been decided. They had already divided the $90,000, splitting it perfectly between the golden child and the fragile one. I didn't just screenshot the file, I screenshot the metadata. Created, 3 weeks ago, last modified, yesterday, at 2:15 p.m., by Tessa Whitaker. This was crucial. This wasn't just Margot's plan. This was active, recent coordination. Tessa was in on the accounting. I saved the screenshot. Evidence. 6. The allocation. I moved every screenshot, every downloaded file, into my personal, encrypted folder. Evidence/core. I sat back. My hands steepled in front of me. The data was clear. They had the legal instrument, the emotional justification, and the executed plan. All that was left was the wire transfer on Friday. Now, I moved to the next phase, proving intent to deceive. I opened my email. I composed a new message to my mother. I kept the tone light, functional, the Sloan the Fixer voice she was so accustomed to. Subject. Quick question. Estate docs. Hi, Mom. Hope the new bank app is working well. I was just updating my personal financial records and realized I never received a final copy of Grandma Genevieve's trust documents for my files. Since I'm still helping manage the tax side of the estate, it would be helpful to have it. Can you send me the PDF when you have a chance? Thanks, Sloan. I was the one who filed the estate taxes. The request was perfectly reasonable. It was logical. It was also a trap. If she were transparent, she would attach the file and say, "Here you go, honey." Her reply came in under an hour. Subject. Quick question. Estate docs. Hi, sweetie. Oh, I'm not sure where that is digitally. It's all in the big filing cabinet. It's all very complicated. You know, let's just talk about it on Sunday when we all get together. No need to worry your head about it now. Love you. Let's talk on Sunday. After the money was gone. It's all very complicated. A dismissal she would never use if I were, say, fixing her mortgage refinancing. Don't worry your head. I saved the email as a PDF. Evidence. 7. Evasion. 10 minutes later, as if on cue, my phone lit up with a text message from Tessa. Tessa, why are you bothering Mom about the trust? She's really stressed out. You know she gets confused by all that legal stuff. Just leave it alone. You're making things difficult. My blood ran cold. You're making things difficult. The echo of less complicated without Sloan. Margot hadn't been confused. She had immediately called Tessa to report my inquiry, and Tessa, the enforcer, had been dispatched to put me back in my box. This was not a guess. This was a coordinated defense. I screenshotted the text message, the timestamp, and Tessa's name. I emailed it to myself and saved it to the folder. Evidence 008. Coordinated intimidation. I had the plan, the weapon, the motive, the allocation, the evasion, and the coordination. I had a case. Now, I needed a lawyer. I didn't search online. I texted a senior partner at North Star, a woman named Catherine, whose divorce I had helped navigate, protecting her assets with surgical precision. Catherine, I need a recommendation. The best, Most aggressive probate and estate litigator you know. It's personal." Her reply was immediate. Archer Hale. "He's a shark, but he's a gentleman shark. He doesn't just win, he dismantles. I'll make the call." An hour later, I was on a video call with Archer Hale. He was in his late 50s, with a calm, appraising gaze and a voice that was utterly devoid of emotional static. I did not tell him my story. I did not talk about my feelings. I shared my screen and presented my evidence, file by file, as I would a financial report. I spoke for 10 minutes, concluding with, "The disbursement of $90,000 is scheduled for this Friday. My objective is to halt that transfer and challenge the distribution." Archer was silent for a long moment, looking at the screen. He didn't offer sympathy. He offered analysis, which was exactly what I needed. "Ms. Whitaker," he said, his voice smooth, "this is an exceptionally well-documented case of bad faith." "Bad faith?" I asked, latching on to the term. "The sole and absolute discretion clause is powerful," Archer explained. "A court is very reluctant to interfere with a trustee's discretion. However, that discretion is not absolute. It cannot be exercised in bad faith, dishonestly, or for a purpose unrelated to the trust's intent. Your grandmother's intent was clearly the well-being of her descendants. Plural." He pointed to his screen. "You have documented a clear, coordinated effort to exclude a known beneficiary. You have the Margot's Core chat, which demonstrates a conspiracy. You have the files from the cloud, which show a premeditated plan to divide the assets. You have your email to your mother, which shows her evasion, and your sister's text, which proves coordinated action to silence you. This is not discretion. This is collusion." "So what's the next step?" I asked. "A simple letter from me putting the trustee, your mother, on notice of a legal dispute will likely freeze any distributions from the financial institution," he said. "They won't want the liability, but they may try to move the money to a private account before the letter hits. We need to move faster. The goal is to get them to the table before Friday." "What do I do?" "Nothing, for now," Archer said. "You've done the hard part. Now, you continue to be the person they expect. Do not accuse, do not confront. Let them think you are still the useful, oblivious daughter. I will draft the formal demand letter. In the meantime, document everything, every call, every text, every email. They have no idea you are this prepared." We ended the call. I felt a cold, clear power settle in me. He was right. They had no idea. They thought of me as a utility, and they had forgotten that a utility can be shut off, or in this case, rerouted. I went back to my desk. My objectives were clear. 1. Transparency. Force the entire plan into the light. 2. Record. Create an unassailable record of their actions. 3. Timing. Intercept the funds before they could be dispersed and hidden in Bryn's Vibe studio. I thought about my word against theirs. I needed to protect my evidence. I looked at my apartment's security camera, the one pointed at my front door. I unplugged it. I walked to my desk and set it on a stack of books, aiming it directly at my laptop screen. I plugged it into a new power source and turned it on. From now on, every time I accessed the cloud, every email I opened, every file I reviewed, would be recorded by an external, time-stamped video feed. I was creating my own chain of custody. If they claimed I fabricated the screenshots, I would have the video of me finding them, unaltered. I created a new document. Checklist, pre-litigation. Finalize digital evidence consolidation. Log all communications with family, timeline. Draft lure invitation. Send invitation and await response. Record all responses. My event timeline was a new spreadsheet. Tuesday, 2:17 p.m. Arrived at Margot's residence. Tuesday, 2:32 p.m. Margot's Core notification received. Tuesday, 2:34 p.m. Accessed Margot's Core message log. Tuesday, 4:51 p.m. Accessed GA Trust Docs folder in Family Cloud. Tuesday, 4:52 p.m. Located sole discretion clause. Article 4.2. Tuesday, 4:54 p.m. Located. Tessa, tuition fund, XLSX, $45,000 allocated, Tuesday. 5:15 p.m. Emailed Margot, trust docs. Tuesday, 6:02 p.m. Received evasive reply from Margot, Tuesday. 6:12 p.m. Received coordinated text from Tessa, Tuesday, 7:30 p.m. Consultation with Archer Hale. It was a beautiful, terrible, factual document. Finally, I drafted the invitation. I sent it to the family group chat, the one they still let me be in. Hey everyone, I have some important financial news I'd like to share, and it's best to do it in person. Can everyone come over to my apartment for dinner on Thursday night? Say 7 p.m.? I hit send. The lure was in the water. Important financial news. To them, that could only mean one thing coming from me. A benefit, a bonus, a new investment, a solution. They would come. They would walk into my apartment, into my territory, expecting to receive something. And I would be there, the auditor, waiting with my ledger. My important financial news lure worked, but not as I intended. The bait was too effective, and they were too wary. The family chat, the one I was still in, lit up almost immediately. Tessa was the first to reply. Sloan, your apartment is way too small for all of us, and the parking is impossible. Don't be silly. Margot followed, her text arriving seconds later, a digital 1-2 punch. Oh, sweetie, don't go to all that trouble. We have plenty of food here. Why don't you just come to the house? Thursday at 7 is perfect. We can't wait to hear your news. It was a transparent, strategic maneuver. They were moving the meeting from my territory, my clean, controlled, minimalist high-rise, back to theirs, back to the house of peeling wallpaper, old memories, and established dynamics. They were summoning me to their home turf, the place where I had always been the functional subordinate, the fixer, the child. They were reinforcing the hierarchy. They were the core, and I was the satellite, being called back into an orbit they defined. Fine by me, I typed back. See you then. It didn't matter. The location was irrelevant. My case was not in my apartment. It was on an encrypted server. My leverage was not in my tone. It was in the metadata. Let them feel comfortable. Let them sit in their worn-in chairs and believe they were in control. On Thursday, I drove the 2 hours back to Gray Harbor. The salt in the air felt different, sharper. I arrived at 6:59. I walked straight into the kitchen, just as they knew I would. The smell of a drying roast and Margot's familiar floral hand soap hit me. A 1-2 punch of manufactured nostalgia. They were all there. Margot, Tessa, Bryn, and Ed, a jury of my accusers, arranged around the oak table, pretending to be my family. The table was set with the good china, the set with the tiny blue flowers and the faint gold rim that was wearing off. It was the china they used for Thanksgiving, Christmas, and apparently for betrayals. Sloan, you made it, Margot beamed, her smile a brittle, bright thing. She was wiping her hands on an apron, playing the part of the welcoming mother. They had, naturally, left me my default seat, the one at the end of the table, the one with the wobbly leg, the one Tessa had cracked in high school. It was the chair I had occupied since I was a teenager, slightly separate from the main triangle formed by Margot, Tessa, and Bryn. I sat down. The chair dipped under my weight, the old imbalance asserting itself. I did not shift or try to steady it. I sat perfectly still, my posture straight, and let it wobble. The conversation was a thick, syrupy performance of normalcy. It was agonizing. They were trying so hard to weave a blanket of the mundane, and I was a block of ice they couldn't cover. My follow-through has just been pulling left, Ed announced to the room, clearing his throat. But I spent Tuesday on the range, and I think I finally sorted the alignment in my hips. It's all in the hips. Tessa didn't even wait for him to finish. You won't believe it, she interrupted, her voice bright with a pride I knew was genuine. Tyler won a medal at the district science fair. A medal. For a model of the solar system. He's just so advanced. Oh, how wonderful, Tess, Margot cooed, clasping her hands together. Just brilliant. And my photography exhibit finally got a date, Bryn murmured, staring at her plate. The gallery in town. The curator said my work has a haunting, essential quality. It's a huge step for my career. They all looked at her with practiced, fond admiration. The prodigy, the artist. I thought of her business plan and the vibes she intended to sell for $45,000. I wondered if the curator knew those vibes were being funded by my stolen inheritance. I ate, I listened, I said nothing. The food was bland, the meat dry. I let the silence around my end of the table build. My lack of participation made them anxious. They spoke faster, their voices overlapping. Filling the void I was creating, they talked about the weather, about a neighbor's new car, about anything and everything except the important financial news I had promised. They were waiting for me to offer it, to present it to them like a gift, to give them the good news they felt they deserved. I finished chewing a piece of overcooked carrot. I placed my knife and fork precisely parallel on the blue-flowered plate. The faint clink of silver on porcelain was the only sound in the room. They all stopped talking and looked at me. The air in the room suddenly felt thin, pressurized. "Sloane?" Margot prompted, her smile tightening at the corners. "You said you had news? Financial news?" "I do," I said. My voice was quiet, almost conversational, but it cut through the smell of the roast like a scalpel. "I know about Margot's core." It was as if I had pulled the pin on a grenade. The immediate effect was not an explosion, but a sudden, violent compression of the atmosphere. Every molecule of oxygen seemed to flee the room. Ed froze, his fork halfway to his mouth. Bryn's eyes widened, and she physically recoiled, her hand flying to her chest as if I had struck her. Margot's face, which had been arranged in a mask of maternal warmth, simply collapsed. Her mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. It was Tessa who recovered first. She always did. Her defense mechanism was never flight. It was always attack. She let out a short, sharp laugh. It was a terrible, brittle sound. "Oh, Sloane, is that what this is? You're snooping on Mom's phone now? Really mature." "I'm not here to discuss how I know," I said, my gaze level, unwavering. "I'm here to discuss the fact that it exists, and the plan to exclude me from Grandma Genevieve's will." "We didn't exclude you," Margot jumped in, her voice rising, finding its footing in a familiar, wounded indignation. "We were trying to protect you. We were trying to avoid this exact kind of awkwardness. It's a private family matter." "Awkwardness," I repeated. The word was flat and lifeless in my mouth. "You call secretly diverting $90,000 behind my back awkwardness?" "It's not your money, Sloane," Tessa snapped, her cheeks flushing red. "You haven't even seen the documents. Grandma left it to Mom's discretion, to decide what was appropriate for the family's well-being." "And this is what's appropriate?" I asked, looking directly at Margot. Her eyes darted away from mine. $45,000 for Tessa, $45,000 for Bryn, and nothing for me? Is that the well-being you decided on? Margot flinched. The specific numbers, the dollar amounts, confirmed I had seen everything. The mask was gone. "You are so successful." "Sloane," Margot said, her voice shifting into the tone I hated most, the gentle, wounded martyr. "You have your big career, your beautiful apartment in the city. You don't need this money. Your sisters do. Bryn is trying to start a business. Tessa has children to think about. It's what Grandma would have wanted. She wanted to help the family." "I am family," I said. The words were cold. "Don't be rude to your mother," Ed finally said, putting his fork down with a thud. He was using his patriarch voice, the one he deployed when he felt his control of the dinner table slipping. "This was a family decision. We all agreed. It's for the best, and it's frankly none of your business." "None of my business?" I echoed. "A family decision. Made in a secret group chat I'm not allowed in. About money from my grandmother that I'm not supposed to know about. That's not a family decision. Ed, that's a conspiracy. You're being so dramatic, Tessa said, rolling her eyes. It was her favorite weapon, the one she used to dismiss any valid point I ever made. You always do this. You make everything into some cold, technical, legal problem. It's just family. Is it just family, Tessa? When I'm the one refinancing your car loan because your credit is shot? I asked. Her face tightened, the color draining from it. Is it just family, Ed? When I'm the one rebalancing your entire retirement portfolio on a Sunday night so you don't lose your savings in a market dip? He stared at his plate, his jaw working silently. Is it just family, Mom? I continued, my voice still quiet, still controlled. When I am the one filing your joint taxes every single April, for free, for the last 10 years? Is it just family? When I'm the one you call to set up your banking apps, reset your passwords, and fight with your insurance provider? No one spoke. The silence was thick and ugly. You're right, I said, my gaze sweeping across their stunned faces. I am successful. I am successful because I built an entire career out of the exact skills this family has leached off of for my entire adult life. The skills you value, but refuse to compensate. The skills you depend on, while you simultaneously plot to steal from me. We are not stealing, Margot shrieked, her voice cracking, all pretense of calm gone. It's not. It's my decision. The lawyer said so. It's at my discretion. That's all this is, Tessa said, grasping for control. She's just being dramatic. She's throwing a tantrum because she didn't get her way. I looked at them, one by one. They didn't deny a single word. They didn't deny the free labor. They didn't deny the secrecy. They just repackaged my accusation as a personality flaw. Sloan is being dramatic. Sloan is being difficult. Sloan is not a family member. She is a problem to be managed. I pushed my chair back. The wobbly legs scraped loudly against the linoleum, a sound that ripped through the tension. I stood up. I'm not being dramatic, I said, placing my napkin neatly on the table beside my unfinished plate. I am being precise. You have until tomorrow at noon to reverse this decision. You can't give us ultimatums, Margot cried, standing up as well. Her face crumpled. I just did, I said. I turned and walked out of the kitchen. I walked through the living room, past the gallery wall of photos, Tessa at her wedding, Bryn at her art school graduation, Tessa's kids in soccer uniforms. There was one photo of me, tucked in the corner, from my college graduation 10 years ago. I opened the front door and stepped out into the damp, salty air. I closed the door behind me. I did not slam it. I closed it with a quiet, definitive click. The silence I left behind in that room, the vacuum where all their noise and justifications had been, felt louder and more powerful than any shouting I could have possibly done. I got into my car. My hands were shaking. The adrenaline was pounding in my ears. A high-pitched whine. I took 3 deep, measured breaths, just as I did before a major client presentation. I pulled out my phone and opened a new note. I did not start the car. I sat there in the dark driveway, the kitchen light spilling onto the lawn like a spotlight on an empty stage, and I typed. I documented every sentence. 7:15 p.m. Conversation started. Ed, golf, Tessa, son's medal, Bryn, art show, 7:21 p.m. I stated, I know about Margot's core, 7:22 p.m. Tessa recovered, accused me of snooping. 7:23 p.m. Margot stated, trying to avoid awkwardness, admitted her legal right to decide. What's appropriate? 7:24 p.m. Ed stated, this was a family decision. We all agreed. Admitted. None of your business. 7:25 p.m. I listed uncompensated labor, Tessa's loan, Ed's 401k, Margot's taxes. 7:26 p.m. No denial from any party. Tessa's response, you're being so dramatic. 7:28 p.m. I left the table. When I was finished, I saved the file. Dinner Confrontation Memo, PDF. I attached it to a new email to Archer Hale. Subject, FWD. Evidence Package, Part 2. Mr. Hale. Attached is a memo detailing the in-person confrontation tonight, along with the full evidence package from the cloud. They confirmed their intent, admitted it was a group decision, and justified their actions by citing my success and their need. Their only defense was to call me dramatic. Please proceed. Sloan Whitaker. I hit send. I put the car in reverse and pulled out of the driveway, never looking back. My phone rang twice on the drive home. Margot, then Tessa. I let them both go to voicemail. When I got back to my apartment, I had a reply from Archer. It was 9:45 p.m. Ms. Whitaker, thank you. This memo is excellent. Their consolidated front is exactly what we needed. We now have a clear pattern of consensual coordination to commit a bad faith action against a beneficiary. Ed's admission that they all agreed moves this from a simple trustee decision to a coordinated conspiracy. This is very, very useful. I will draft the formal settlement offer immediately. I replied in 1 minute. Send it tonight. Demand $30,000, my 1/3 share, plus an agreement of non-interference with my career or clients. The deadline is tomorrow, 24 hours. They must agree before the funds are dispersed on Friday morning. Archer's email went out at 11 p.m., a formal, terrifying document sent to Margot, Tessa, Bryn, and Ed. It included a link to a secure server containing all 18 screenshots, the video of me finding the files, and my memo from the dinner. I set my alarm for the next day. I turned off my notifications. The 24-hour deadline passed in total. Absolute silence. No reply, no calls, no texts. They were closing ranks. They were calling my bluff. They were going to try to push the transfer through. At 11:30 that night, just as I was logging off my work computer, my phone lit up. It was an Instagram notification. Bryn had just posted a new story. It was a picture of her, artfully teary-eyed, in her messy studio, a paintbrush held limply in her hand. The caption was written in a flowing, artistic font. So heartbroken. My dreams are finally about to happen, and now my own sister is using lawyers to try and stop me. Some people just can't stand to see others succeed. The public smear campaign had begun. Bryn's Instagram post was the first shot. It went live at 11:27 p.m., just 27 minutes after the initial 24-hour deadline had passed in silence. Their answer wasn't a reply to my lawyer. It was a public declaration of war. It was a black and white photo, artfully composed to catch the accidental tear rolling down her cheek. She was in her studio, surrounded by clay and canvases. The picture of the suffering artist, the caption, as I had seen, was a masterpiece of passive-aggressive victimhood. So heartbroken. My dreams are finally about to happen, and now my own sister is using lawyers to try and stop me. Some people just can't stand to see others succeed. I stared at it, my mind cold and clear. This was their strategy. They were moving the battle from the legal arena, where they were hopelessly outgunned, to the court of public opinion, where they could paint me as the villain, the cold, rich, heartless sister crushing the dreams of the fragile artist. I did not reply. I did not comment. I did not feel the surge of anger they were hoping for. I simply did what I do best. I documented. I took a high-resolution screenshot. I saved it. Bryn Smear 01.png. The second shot came an hour later. At 12:34 a.m., it was from Tessa. She preferred Facebook. It was a better platform for her brand of maternal moralizing. She posted a stock photo of a stylized tree with the words, "Family is everything," written over it. Her caption was less subtle than Bryn's. Family is everything. It's about supporting each other, lifting each other up, and protecting each other. My children are my world. But it's sad when some people forget that. It's truly heartbreaking when someone would rather hire lawyers than talk to their own kin. You just have to pray for them. The comments flooded in immediately. You're such a good mom. Tess? Sending you love. I can't imagine. Family should always come first. She was the devoted mother. I was the one who preferred lawyers to kin. The narrative was set. I was the outsider, the snake. I screenshotted the post. I screenshotted the comments. Tessa's smear 01 PNG. The third wave began at 7 a.m., right as I was making my morning coffee. The extended family, mobilized overnight by Margot, began their assault. The family text thread, the one I was still in, lit up. My Aunt Carol, Margot's sister, Sloane, I am just so disappointed in you. Your mother is a mess. What you are doing to Bryn is just cruel. My Uncle Mike, Ed's brother, your grandmother would be ashamed of this. Using lawyers against your own blood? Disgusting. A cousin I hadn't seen in 3 years. Wow, Sloane, guess that city money really changed you. Don't forget where you came from. They were a chorus of the uninformed, a mob of flying monkeys dispatched by Margot, armed with a single, twisted narrative. I read every message. A faint, cold curiosity my only emotion. They were all part of the system, the core and its validators. I did not reply to a single one. I simply screenshotted the entire thread. Family chat smear 01 PNG. I created a new subfolder within my encrypted evidence core directory. I named it Public Smear. I saved all 3 files. These were not family grievances. These were exhibits. Their first tactical error came at 9:15 a.m. I received a new email. The subject line was FWD, the situation with Sloane. My blood went cold, but not with fear, with anticipation. It was from Margot. She had intended to forward an email to her sister, Aunt Carol, but her fingers, clumsy with rage or incompetence, had forwarded it to Sloane Whitaker instead of Carol Winters. I opened it. It was the email chain I wasn't supposed to see. The original message was from Tessa, sent to the Margot's Core group chat, now memorialized in email. Mom, we need to get ahead of this. We need to tell the family our side first. Tell them Sloane is threatening us. Tell them she's trying to take Bryn's studio money. We need everyone on our side. Below it was Margot's reply, the one she had just accidentally sent to me. You're right, Tess. I just spoke to Carol and Mike. I am sending this to you. Bryn and Ed, this is the official story. We are heartbroken. Sloane is very successful and we are proud. But this money was meant to help the others. She is having some kind of episode, hiring lawyers and making terrible threats. Please reinforce this. We have to be united. It was the script, the official story, the written proof of a coordinated conspiracy to defame me, sent directly to my inbox by the ringleader herself. I saved the email as a PDF, Margot Coordination Email 01, PDF. I added it to the Public Smear folder. The second tactical error came an hour later. My phone, which I had set to Do Not Disturb, buzzed with a call that broke through. A favorite. It was Ed. I stared at the name. Ed, the enabler. The man who had sat silently while I listed the free labor I performed for him. I let it ring twice, then answered, putting it on speaker. Sloane, I said, my voice flat. This has gone too far, he blustered. There was no greeting, just pure, self-righteous rage. You've gone too far, Sloane. This is petty. This is vindictive. What are you talking about, Ed? My retirement account. You locked me out. I can't log in. You changed my password, didn't you? After everything you said at dinner, you're trying to punish me. I was silent for a beat, processing the sheer, stunning audacity of the accusation. He was accusing me of financial sabotage. I turned to my laptop. I opened my encrypted password manager, the one I had built for the entire family, the one I paid the subscription for. I navigated to Ed 401k. I said, my voice dangerously calm. I have not touched your account. Your password is Go Warriors 1978. The G is capitalized, the W is capitalized, and there is an exclamation point at the end. It has been that password since I set it up for you 2 years ago. There was total, dead silence on the other end of the line. I could hear his breathing. I could hear the faint click, click, click of his keyboard as he, no doubt, typed in the password I had just provided. I imagined the login screen granting him access, the wave of humiliation and anger washing over him. He had been so convinced of my villainy, so eager to find new proof of my treachery, that he had manufactured it himself. Click. He hung up. He did not say thank you. He did not apologize for the accusation. He simply hung up. I sat at my desk, the dial tone humming, and I finally understood. It was a moment of absolute blinding clarity. They were in the middle of a coordinated campaign to paint me as a toxic, greedy, vindictive monster. But the instant Ed's digital life broke, the second he was incompetent to handle his own affairs, who did he call? He didn't call Tessa. He didn't call Margot. He called the monster. He called the one person he knew could fix it. They still needed my function, even as they were actively trying to destroy my person. This wasn't hypocrisy. This was a critical dependency. They were trying to set my house on fire, forgetting that I was the one who held the master key, paid the mortgage, and knew where the water main was. I did not call Archer, not yet. I typed out a memo of the call with Ed. Time-stamped. Ed call memo 01.pdf. I exported the call log from my phone. Ed call log, PNG. I bundled everything. The screenshots of Bryn's post, the screenshots of Tessa's post, the screenshots of the family texts, the accidental coordination email from Margot, the memo of Ed's call. I attached it all to a new email to Archer. Subject, FWD, Evidence Package, Part 3, Harassment and Defamation. Mr. Hale. They have declined to respond to the offer. Instead, they have launched a coordinated public smear campaign, which I have documented in the attached folder. They are also making false accusations of financial retaliation. As detailed in the attached call memo, please advise on our next move. They are attempting to inflict reputational damage. Sloan. Archer called me 10 minutes later. His voice was not the calm, appraising tone of our first call. It was the voice of a shark that has just smelled blood in the water. Ms. Whitaker, he said, this is a gift, a colossally stupid, legally actionable gift. Their silence was arrogant. This is panic, and it is coordinated harassment. What does it mean, legally? I asked. It means we are no longer simply in a dispute over a bad faith trust distribution, Archer said. We are now in a dispute involving defamation, slander, and coordinated harassment. They are actively and publicly damaging your character, which has a real-world cost to your professional reputation. Ed's call is the proof. He's already viewing you as a hostile actor, which could bleed into your professional life. We are no longer asking for your 1/3 share. What are we asking for? We are demanding compensation, he said. $30,000 for the inheritance, an additional $5,000 for legal fees and preliminary reputational damages, a total of $35,000, and it will be accompanied by a cease and desist. This is our final offer. The deadline is tomorrow morning, Friday, 9 a.m., the exact hour the funds are set to disperse. And you'll send them everything? Oh, yes, Archer said, a chill in his voice. I am going to attach all 18 of the original screenshots. I am going to attach the video of you finding the files. I'm going to attach your dinner memo. And I'm going to add this new, beautiful folder of their coordinated smear campaign. I am going to show them, in excruciating detail, exactly how they have handed us the hammer. They think they are building a narrative. I am going to show them they were building our case. The new email went out at 11:30 a.m., a digital bomb, sent to Margot, Tessa, Bryn, Ed, and now, for the first time, to their family lawyer, the one my aunt had mentioned in the text messages. This time, the silence did not last an hour. At 11:45 a.m., my phone rang. It was Margot. I looked at the screen. Archer had been explicit. Do not, under any circumstances, communicate with them directly. All contact goes through me. I let the call go to voicemail. A minute later, the voicemail icon appeared. I pressed play. "Sloan, honey, pick up." Margot's voice was tight, breathless, laced with a new, genuine panic. "This is insane. You are tearing this family apart. $35,000? This isn't you. You're listening to that awful, awful lawyer. He's twisting everything. Just call me. Please. Sloan, call your mother. We can fix this. Just the family." Just the family. The same family that didn't include me. The same family that was, at that very moment, telling our extended relatives that I was a monster. I did not delete the message. I exported the audio file. I emailed it to Archer. "Margot bypass VM01. His reply was instant. "Excellent. She is actively trying to circumvent counsel. This is profound weakness. Hold the line. Do not reply." At 1 p.m., another notification. Bryn. She had posted a new story. This one was just text on a black background. It's so sad when you see someone you love being manipulated by a toxic person. I will always stand by my family. Always. Even when it's hard. She had just called my lawyer, and by extension, me, toxic. I screenshotted it. Bryn Smear 02 PNG. I sent it to Archer. He added it to the file. The deadline of 9 a.m. Friday loomed. They were backed into a corner. They were panicking. They were lashing out. And then, at 8:37 p.m. on Thursday night, the entire axis of the conflict shifted. I got a new message request on Instagram. It wasn't from a family member. It was from a blank profile. No photo, no posts, 0 followers. The username was a random string of letters and numbers. Harborview 1121. I opened the request. There were 2 things, a single sentence and an attached photo. The message read, "They've been lying to you about when this started. Thought you should know." My fingers felt numb. I clicked the attachment. The photo was a high-resolution, perfectly clear shot of a single page from a yellow legal pad. I knew the handwriting instantly. It was Margot's. Looping, elegant, perfectly formed. It was a list of handwritten notes. It was a budget. G.A. Fund, total $90,001. Tessa, Tyler's tuition fund, $45,002. Bryn, studio startup, $45,000. And then, at the bottom of the page, a sentence, underlined twice, "Must transfer funds on the 10th, the day they clear. Tell the girls. Don't let Sloan know. She will just make it a whole legal thing and try to stop it." My breath caught in my chest. This was it. This was the smoking gun. This wasn't just a plan. This was a written confession of the conspiracy, the intent, and the cover-up. I looked at the top right corner of the legal pad. In my mother's same, perfect handwriting, was the date, March 14th, 2 months ago, long before the awkward dinner, long before she claimed it was a complicated issue she hadn't decided on. They had been planning this, down to the dollar, for months. I forwarded the image to Archer. I didn't even write an email. I just sent the attachment. He called me 30 seconds later. "Archer," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "My God," he said. His voice was different. It was the sound of a predator that had just been handed a killing blow. "This is it. This is the entire case. This is conscious, premeditated, bad faith conspiracy. Where did you get this?" "Anonymous," I said, staring at the blank Instagram profile. "I have no idea." "It doesn't matter," Archer said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. "It's here. The drill just hit the main nerve. Ms. Whitaker, they're cracking. They're leaking. Someone on the inside just handed you the win." He took a breath. "Hold steady. We do nothing. We wait. The next move is theirs, and it will be absolute, utter panic." The email from Margot's lawyer arrived in Archer's inbox at 9:47 p.m. Archer forwarded it to me without comment, and none was needed. It was a masterpiece of condescending, time-wasting fluff. It was addressed to Archer. "Mr. Hale," it began, "I am representing the Whitaker family in this unfortunate misunderstanding. My clients are deeply distressed by what they feel is a gross misinterpretation of their intentions. This is a private family matter, driven by emotion, not malice. I scoffed, the sound sharp in my quiet apartment. Clearly, the letter continued, there has been a breakdown in communication. My clients are, as they have always been, amenable to a family discussion. They would like to invite Sloan to join them for a private talk, perhaps at the family home this Sunday, where they can work through this together. We trust you will advise your client that this is the most productive and healing path forward. It was a trap, and a weak one, a healing path that conveniently bypassed the Friday disbursement. They were stalling. They were treating me like a hysterical child and Archer like an overzealous ambulance chaser. They were still trying to manage my emotions, completely oblivious to the fact that I was managing a legal case. I replied to Archer, they are stalling. They think I'm emotional. They are wrong. Send the final warning. Archer's response, sent at 9:55 p.m. to the lawyer, with Margot, Tessa, Bryn, and Ed all copied, was a digital declaration of war. Subject: Demand, Whitaker, Whitaker Trust. Mr. Lawyer's name. We are not interested in a healing path that conveniently postpones resolution until after the bad faith distribution of the $90,000. Scheduled for this Friday. Your client's intentions have been clearly documented in their own written communications, which you will find attached. This includes a handwritten, premeditated budget from 2 months ago detailing the conspiracy to exclude my client, and a coordinated public smear campaign to damage her reputation. This is our final offer. Cease and desist all defamatory contact. Agree to the settlement of $35,000, which includes my client's 1/3 share, plus preliminary legal fees and damages. This offer is non-negotiable. If we do not have a signed acceptance by 9 a.m. tomorrow, Friday, we will be filing a petition for an immediate injunction and a civil complaint for bad faith breach of fiduciary duty, conspiracy, and defamation. We will see your clients in court. Archer Hale. He attached everything: the Margot's core texts, the cloud documents, the memo from the dinner, the smear campaign screenshots, and the new, damning centerpiece, the high-resolution photo of Margot's handwritten, dated note. While that email detonated in their inboxes, I opened a new document. The time for demanding was over. It was time to redefine the terms of my existence. I had been their function for a decade. The system was now being decommissioned. I titled the document, Termination of Pro Bono Financial Services. I drafted it with the precise, chillingly polite language I used for disengaging from a non-paying corporate client. To Margot Whitaker, Ed Garrison, Tessa Whitaker, Bryn Whitaker. From Sloan Whitaker. Date, Thursday, October 30th. Subject, discontinuation of all uncompensated financial advisory and tax services. This letter is to formally notify you that, effective immediately, I will no longer be providing any pro bono financial, tax, or administrative services to you, either individually or as a group. This discontinuation of services is final. For your records, services I have performed free of charge over the past 10 years have included, but are not limited to: 1. Preparation and filing of annual federal and state 1040 tax returns, Margot and Ed. 2. Preparation and filing of quarterly 1040 ES estimated tax payments, ED. 3. Annual FAFSA applications and financial aid consultations, Tessa, on behalf of her children. 4. Retirement portfolio analysis and 401k rebalancing, ED. 5. Debt consolidation analysis and loan refinancing consultation, Tessa. 6. General IT support, password management, and insurance policy review, all. I have attached a secure file containing all your relevant financial passwords, tax documents, and account information that I currently have on file. I advise you to download these immediately, as my password management subscription for your family accounts will not be renewed. Upcoming deadlines you should be aware of. January 15th. Deadline for Q4, 2025, 10:40 ES estimated tax payment. March 1st. Recommended FAFSA completion date for 2026-2027. Academic year. April 15th. Deadline for 2025, 10:40 tax filing. I strongly recommend you engage the services of a qualified, paid certified public accountant and a financial advisor to avoid any lapses in filing or penalties. I have included a list of 3 reputable CPA firms in the Gray Harbor area. All further communications regarding this matter should be directed to my legal counsel, Archer Hale. I will not be responding to direct inquiries. Sincerely, Sloan Whitaker. I attached the password file. I attached the list of CPAs. I sent it, and I turned my phone onto Do Not Disturb. It was a symbolic gesture. The phone, resting on my desk, began to vibrate anyway. The emergency bypass calls I had once set up for them now being used against me. The screen lit up. Margot, Ed, Tessa, Margot again, Ed, Bryn. It was a frantic, percussive rhythm of panic. They were realizing that the utility was being shut off. They were realizing that their taxes were due. I did not look at the names. I watched the phone vibrate itself across the smooth surface of my desk, a physical manifestation of their rage. It looked like a dying animal. I reached over and held the power button, silencing it completely. The screen went black. The silence in my apartment was absolute. I stood up and walked to the window. The sun had set, and the city lights were a cold, beautiful blur. I felt hollow, but not in a bad way. I felt clean. I had just performed a surgical extraction of a decade-long tumor. My gaze fell on my camera, still on its tripod. I hadn't touched it since this began. The last rays of twilight were casting a long, sharp-edged rectangle of amber light across my hardwood floor. It was a simple, beautiful, geometric form, light against darkness, structure. I turned on the camera. I adjusted the aperture. I looked through the viewfinder, and for the first time in days, my breathing was perfectly even. I was not the function. I was not the fixer. I was the person who saw this line, this light. I was the person who found beauty in structure. I pressed the shutter. The click of the camera was the sound of my life resuming. As I was reviewing the shot on the small screen, my laptop chimed. A new DM on Instagram. It was Harbor Whistle. The message was brief. They're panicking. They think you've already called the bank. Margot just pinned a message to the core chat to make sure they all follow the plan. Attached was a new screenshot. It was the top of the Margot's core chat. A small gray box read, Pinned message. The message, from Margot, was in all caps. No one talk to Sloan. No one. Let the lawyer handle it. The transfer is at 9 a.m. Friday. 9 a.m. sharp. It will be done before she can stop it. This was good. This was intent to execute, even after receiving a legal demand. But a screenshot could be faked. My auditor's brain kicked in. I needed to verify. I typed back to the anonymous account. This is useful, but they will say it's fabricated. I can't use a screenshot. The 3 dots appeared immediately. The reply came. 1 second. A new file appeared. A video. IMG 4077.move. I clicked play. It was not a screen recording. It was a video of a phone. Someone was holding their phone, recording the screen of another phone. The video was shaky. I saw a hand, an index finger. Tap the Instagram icon. I saw the DMs open. I saw the finger tap Margot's core. The chat log opened. The finger then scrolled up to the top of the chat and tapped the pinned message. The message flashed. 9 a.m. sharp. My blood turned to ice. A video of a phone. This meant 2 people were involved, or 1 person. Very clever. Recording their own chat log from a separate device. But the more chilling realization was who was recording. This was not a third party. This was someone inside the core. Someone who was in the room. Someone who was watching them panic, and calmly, methodically, documenting their downfall. I sent the video file to Archer. His email reply was 4 words. This is the executioner's axe. I smiled, a real, cold, tight smile. The whistleblower is self-verifying, I said to the empty room. They don't even need to be found. I saved the contact in my encrypted directory. Harbor Whistle. I would never ask who it was. I did not want to know. The deniability was a shield for us both. The morning came, Friday, D-Day, at 7:15 a.m. Archer received an email from their lawyer. The tone was no longer condescending. It was frantic. Mr. Hale, it read. My clients are very distressed by this entire situation and are adamant that they have done nothing illegal. However, in the interest of family harmony, they would like to propose an immediate private mediation session this afternoon. They are willing to discuss a fair resolution. Archer forwarded it to me. The white flag. They are terrified. They just blinked. This was the moment. The money was already mine, but I had a choice. I could take the money, or I could take their pride. I typed back, ask for a public apology. Bryn and Tessa must post full, public retractions on their social media, admitting their posts were false and defamatory. If they refuse, we increase the damages. Archer sent the counteroffer. The reply from their lawyer took 58 minutes. My clients will absolutely not be engaging in a public retraction. That is off the table. I laughed. I actually laughed out loud. Of course they wouldn't. Their public image, their precious narrative of victimhood, was worth more to them than money. They would rather pay me off than admit to our 100-plus shared relatives that they were liars. Good, I wrote to Archer. They chose money. Let's make it cost them. Archer's final counteroffer went out at 8:30 a.m., half an hour to the deadline. Mr. Lawyer's name. Since your clients have refused a non-monetary resolution, the settlement is now $35,000. Furthermore, my client requires the immediate addition of 2 binding clauses, a permanent, comprehensive non-defamation and non-disparagement agreement, and a strict no-contact clause, prohibiting any and all direct or indirect communication from your clients to Ms. Whitaker regarding financial, legal, or administrative matters. All future contact must be facilitated by counsel. This is the final offer. The 9 a.m. deadline stands. The silence was absolute. My laptop clock ticked. 8:45 a.m., 8:50, 8:55. They were going to push it. They were going to try to transfer the money and claim it was already in motion. They were going to fight. My phone buzzed. An email from Archer. I opened it. It was just a forwarded acceptance. Received at 8:59 a.m. We accept. The signed agreement is attached. The victory at 8:59 a.m. was not a single moment. It was the result of 2 parallel strategies, launched simultaneously in the hours leading up to the deadline. While their lawyer was sending stalling emails, I was dismantling their escape route. The first track was legal and digital. The second was financial. On Thursday night, after receiving the final, damning evidence from Harbor Whistle, I set my plan for the morning. I was not going to sit and wait for their reply. I was going to build the execution platform. I scheduled a private, encrypted live stream for 8:30 a.m. Friday. The invite list was 3 people: me, Archer Hale, and the anonymous Harbor Whistle account. The purpose was to create a live, admissible, time-stamped record of our final evidence, a virtual deposition. While the city was still dark, I worked. I built the timeline. It was a single, devastating webpage, coded in my apartment. It was a chronological story of their conspiracy. It started with the metadata from the cloud docs, showing the creation of the tuition fund spreadsheet. It showed the date on Margot's handwritten note. It showed the first Margot's core text. It showed my innocent email inquiry. It showed Margot's evasive reply. It showed Tessa's coordinated text. It showed the dinner confrontation memo. It showed Bryn's first heartbroken post. It showed Tessa's family first post. It showed the accidental coordination email from Margot. It showed Ed's phone call. It showed the video of the pinned message. Every piece of evidence was laid out, linked and undeniable. At 7 a.m., I ran a script. I digitally time-stamped every single file. Every screenshot, every memo, every video, binding them to a specific moment in time. This elevated them from simple pictures to notarized facts. The trap was set. The second track began at 7:30 a.m. I made one call. It was not to a lawyer. It was to a colleague at North Star. Ben Carter. Ben works in our forensic accounting division. He owes me a favor after I untangled a multi-million-dollar asset problem for his biggest client. Ben, I said, my voice low. Hypothetical. You have a trustee of an estate about to make a bad faith distribution from a major national bank, but you suspect they're not going to do it directly. They're going to try and hide the transaction. They'll use a buffer account, Ben said instantly, not even needing to think. They'll open a new, temporary account at a small, local bank, probably in the trustee's hometown. They'll transfer the full $90,000 there at 9 a.m., then immediately wire it out in 2 separate transactions to the final recipients. The money only rests in the buffer account for about 60 seconds. It's clean, fast, and almost untraceable after the fact. The major bank just sees one transfer to a legitimate account. The small bank just sees a pass-through. Why? Can you find it? I asked. If the account was opened in the trustee's name, in her zip code, in the last 30 days, give me 10 minutes. While Ben worked his magic, I focused on track 1. At 8:10 a.m., a new message from Harbor Whistle appeared. It was another photo of a different page from Margot's yellow legal pad. More notes, a new sentence, circled. Must be done before Sloan finds out. She will react badly. Just tell her it's done and she'll get over it. She will react badly. Not it would be unfair. Not she deserves a share. Just, she will be a problem. I was a logistical hurdle to be managed. I saved the image. I time-stamped it. I added it to the timeline. At 8:30 a.m., the live stream began. My screen was split into 3. Me, in my apartment, my face calm. Archer, in his oak-paneled office, his expression severe. And a third, black box, labeled Harbor Whistle. Good morning, Archer said. His voice clipped and formal. He was speaking for the record. Ms. Whitaker, you have compiled a timeline of events. Please present it. I shared my screen. I walked him through every point. The cloud files, the texts, the smear campaign. And now, I said, we have live verification. The black box of Harbor Whistle flickered and then shared its own screen. We were watching, live, as the anonymous user opened their messages and scrolled through the Margot's Core chat. We saw the pinned message, 9 a.m. sharp. Archer spoke, his eyes on the screen. Let the record show that we are observing, in real time, the active chat log, which demonstrates clear, conscious, and willful collusion to exclude a known beneficiary. The repeated instruction to not tell Sloan constitutes a premeditated plan rooted in bad faith. As he was saying the words bad faith, an email notification popped onto my screen. It was 8:47 a.m. It was from their lawyer. Archer read it aloud. Mr. Hale, in the interest of a swift resolution, my clients are willing to consider the $35,000 settlement. However, this would be contingent on a comprehensive, internal non-disclosure agreement, binding all parties to silence. They were stalling and trying to gag me. Archer, I said, live on the stream. My response is no. An internal NDA is too vague. They will use it to claim I breached it if I take on a client they know, or even speak to a relative. My counter is firm. We add the specific non-interference clause protecting my professional career, and the non-negotiable no-contact clause. Send it. Archer typed, sending the final counter demand. The 9 a.m. deadline stands. It was 8:50 a.m. My other phone, my personal one, buzzed. A text from Ben. Found it. Gray Harbor Community Bank. Account ending in 4055. Opened 6 days ago. She's ready. I muted myself on the live stream. I called Archer's private line. He found it, I said. Gray Harbor Community Bank. Account 4055. Archer's voice was electric. That's the kill shot. He muted himself on our stream, and I watched him dial on his desk phone. "Get me the compliance department at Gray Harbor Community Bank," he barked. "This is Archer Hale of Hale, Barrow, and Stone. I am serving you with an immediate, formal notice of a legal dispute regarding account number 4055. Any funds entering that account are subject to a legal injunction. Do not, under any circumstances, allow a pass-through." He hung up. He looked back at our live stream. "Track 2 is in place. The exit is sealed." The clock on my laptop read 8:55 a.m., an email alert. It was Archer's associate, monitoring the bank line. "Confirmation," Archer read. "The bank's compliance officer has received our notice. The account is flagged. Any incoming wire from the trust will be frozen on arrival." They had nowhere to run. The money was trapped. At 8:58 a.m., my Instagram notification chimed. It was Tessa. She had just posted a new story. It was a picture of the sun rising over the Gray Harbor docks, the light hitting the water. The caption was serene. "Relief is coming. So soon. Feeling blessed and ready for the next chapter." She thought the money was coming. She was sitting by her phone, waiting for the $90,000 to hit the buffer account, ready to be split. She had no idea the account was a trap. She had no idea her blessed moment was being screenshotted, time-stamped, and added to a legal file as the final proof of her conspiratorial mindset. The clock ticked to 8:59 a.m. My phone, the one I had silenced, lit up the desk. It was Margot, bypassing her lawyer, bypassing everything. She was calling me directly. The screen went dark. She called again, and again, and again. She must have just gotten the call. The lawyer, telling her the bank had frozen the account. The entire plan, months in the making, had just evaporated. I stared at the screen as her name flashed. Margot, Margot, Margot. I pressed the silence button. I would not be her fixer. I would not absorb her panic. On the live stream, Archer, Harbor whistle, and I watched the clock. 9 a.m. A new email appeared in Archer's inbox. He opened it. He was silent for a beat. He looked directly into his camera. "Mr. Hale," he read aloud, his voice flat and devoid of emotion. "My clients accept all terms of Ms. Sloan Whitaker. The fully executed settlement agreement is attached. The wire transfer for $35,000 will be initiated by end of day to your firm's trust account. Please confirm receipt." The live stream was silent. Harbor Whistle typed one word into the chat. Done. The black box with their name vanished. The stream ended. It was over. The signed acceptance at 8:59 a.m. was not the end. It was the surrender. The war was over. But the terms of the treaty still needed to be finalized, executed, and witnessed. Archer, ever the meticulous strategist, did not accept a simple email. He scheduled an immediate 4-party video call for 10 a.m., a digital signing ceremony, a final, formal confrontation on our terms. My screen blinked, and the video call connected. It was a sterile, corporate interface. 4 boxes waiting to be filled. Archer's box lit up first. He was in his office, the same oak-paneled backdrop, a leather-bound book visible over his shoulder. He wore a crisp white shirt and a dark tie. He looked rested. He looked, as he always did, completely impassive. My own box lit up. I was at my desk, my apartment behind me clean and filled with the sharp, clear light of morning. I had changed into a dark blazer. My camera was in sharp focus. I had my audio balanced perfectly. I was a professional, attending a business meeting. Then, their side connected. 2 boxes lit up simultaneously. One was their lawyer, a man named Harrison. He looked harried, his tie slightly askew, his hair looking like he had been running his hands through it. He was in a generic, beige office. The final box was Margot. The sight of her hit me, not with emotion, but with a jolt of cold, analytical data. She was not the beaming, manipulative matriarch from the kitchen. She was not the panicked, shrieking voice from the voicemail. She was a woman who had been utterly dismantled. She was sitting in what looked like her living room, the familiar floral wallpaper behind her, but she looked small, shrunken. Her face was puffy, her eyes red-rimmed and hollow. She was wearing a faded pink cardigan. She looked like a ghost, haunting the ruins of her own house. She refused to look at the camera. Her gaze was fixed somewhere just below her screen, presumably on her own hands, clasped in her lap. "Good morning," Archer began. His voice was not triumphant. It was flat. It was the voice of a man reading a weather report. "We are all here to execute the settlement agreement, as accepted by your clients at 8:59 a.m. This call is being recorded for the record." Harrison, their lawyer, cleared his throat. He forced a thin, professional smile. "Yes, good morning, Mr. Hale. Sloan, my client, Mrs. Whitaker, is here to close this matter. We all agree it's been an unfortunate misunderstanding, and we are glad to be putting it behind us in the quietest, most amicable way possible." Quietest, amicable. The words were meaningless. The final, pathetic attempts to frame their surrender as a mutual decision. "There is no misunderstanding, Mr. Harrison," Archer said, his tone still perfectly level. "And we are not here to discuss amicability. We are here to verify the terms. Based on the evidence, my client's position from the beginning has been based on an irrefutable timeline of fact." And with that, Archer shared his screen. The video call interface shrank, and my meticulously constructed timeline filled everyone's view. "Let's briefly review the record," Archer said, his voice the only sound, "so that we are all, as you say, on the same page." His cursor moved, a sharp white arrow against the black background of the web page I had built. "We begin with the creation of the Tessa Tuition Fund XLSX file, time-stamped 3 weeks ago, allocating $45,000. We proceed to the handwritten note, dated 2 months ago, detailing the full $90,000 diversion and the explicit instruction. I quote, "Don't let Sloan know. She will just make it a whole legal thing." I watched Margot's box. She flinched. A small, convulsive movement. Her eyes squeezed shut. Archer continued, his voice relentless, moving to the next item. "We see the establishment of the Margot's Core chat. We see the conspiracy to exclude. We see my client's reasonable, polite email requesting the trust documents." He clicked. "We see your client's evasive reply, claiming the documents were complicated and in a filing cabinet, when we have just seen she had been studying them for months." He clicked. "We see the coordinated text from Ms. Tessa Whitaker, attempting to intimidate my client, seconds after your client alerted her." He clicked. "We see the memo from the dinner confrontation, where your clients, including Mr. Garrison, admitted to a family decision and failed to deny a single act of uncompensated labor." He paused, letting the list hang in the air. "And then, Mr. Harrison, we come to the misunderstanding that is the coordinated smear campaign, launched after my client's initial private settlement offer." "Now, that is an unfair characterization," Harrison interrupted, his voice suddenly stronger, finding his footing. "My clients, particularly the younger daughters, were emotional. They felt attacked. They vented, as people do. To call it a campaign—" "I did not call it a campaign, Mr. Harrison," Archer said, his voice turning to ice. "Your clients did. I am now playing a video, received from an internal source, showing the Margot's Core chat log. Live." He clicked the play button. The video I had received from Harbor Whistle filled the screen. The shaky hand, the phone recording another phone, the finger tapping, the chat log, and then the finger tapping the pinned message, the one from Margot. In all caps, 9 a.m., sharp. It will be done before she can stop it. It played in total silence. I watched Margot. Her face, which had been pale and puffy, seemed to cave in. The last bit of defensive energy, the last spark of her matriarchal self-righteousness, was extinguished. This was not an accusation from me, the dramatic daughter. This was proof from inside her own core. This was the ultimate betrayal, and it had been aimed at her, not me. Her head bowed, and she stared at her lap, her shoulders beginning to shake in a silent, terrible way. Harrison, the lawyer, went chalk white. He stared at the video, his mouth open. He had clearly never seen it. He had been lied to, or at least kept in the dark by his own clients. He was arguing a case while they had already confessed, in writing, to the crime. "Mr. Hale," Harrison said, his voice strangled. Please, can we have a 5-minute pause? My client and I need to confer, privately." "Of course," Archer said, his voice magnanimous. He unshared his screen. "We will be here." Their 2 boxes went black. "On hold." Archer and I sat in silence. Neither of us spoke. There was nothing to say. The work was done. The data had spoken. I just watched the clock on my computer. 4 minutes and 51 seconds later, their boxes lit back up. Harrison looked 10 years older. The slick, combative lawyer was gone. He was just a man trying to clean up a catastrophic, indefensible mess. Margot was still visible, but she seemed to have muted her video feed. The image was frozen on her downcast, shattered face. "Mr. Hale," Harrison said, his voice low, completely devoid of its earlier bluster. He was reading from a script. My client, Mrs. Whitaker, is prepared to execute the agreement as written. We accept all terms, the $35,000, the non-disparagement, the no contact, all of it. Let's just get this done." They were broken. They were ready to sign anything to make the video, the timeline, the truth go away. This was my moment. "One moment, Mr. Hale," I said, speaking for the first time, my voice, calm and clear, sliced into the silence. Margot's head physically snapped up. Her eyes, red and wild, finally met mine through the screen. She was shocked to hear me speak. I was the object they were discussing, not a participant. "Sloan," Harrison said, his eyes narrowing. "The terms have been accepted." "I have one final term," I said, looking directly at my mother. "It is non-monetary." Harrison sighed, a sound of pure exhaustion. "What is it?" "I require a formal, written addendum to this agreement. It will be a simple paragraph. It will state that for a period of 10 years, I, Sloan Whitaker, provided all tax, financial, and administrative services to Margot Whitaker, Ed Garrison, Tessa Whitaker, and Bryn Whitaker, free of charge. It will contain an acknowledgement that this uncompensated labor was received and accepted by all parties." Harrison stared at me, uncomprehending. An acknowledgement of services?" "Yes," I said. "No apology, no thanks, just a simple, factual statement of labor performed. Acknowledgement." I watched my mother. She understood. This was not about the $90,000. It was not even about the $35,000. It was about the reason they thought they could steal from me in the first place, because my contribution, my labor, my function, was invisible to them, and they had just been forced to see it. "Absolutely not," Harrison said, shaking his head. That could be construed as an admission of liability. It implies a debt. It implies nothing," Archer cut in, his voice sharp, backing my play. "It is a statement of fact. You have a problem with facts. Mr. Harrison? It's inflammatory. It's unnecessary," Harrison stammered, looking off screen, no doubt at a frantic text from Margot. "My client will not sign an admission of that." Margot was shaking her head violently, her eyes screwed shut. No, she would pay me. But she would never, ever admit that she had used me. "That's fine," I said, my voice gentle. Margot's eyes opened, a flicker of hope in them. "In that case," I continued, "we will require an additional $15,000 to waive the addendum." Harrison's jaw dropped. "What? That's extortion." "That's negotiation," Archer countered, not missing a beat. You have just claimed that the addendum, a simple statement of fact, implies a massive liability. You have, in effect, put a price on that liability. My client agrees. The price is $15,000. You can sign the paper and admit the truth for free, or you can pay to maintain your preferred narrative. The choice is yours. I watched my mother. I had given her a binary choice. Truth or money. I saw her face, a complex mask of rage, humiliation, and calculation. She was doing the math. Signing that paper would be a public, legal admission that she was a user, a leech. It would be a document her entire family, her lawyers, everyone, would see. It was an admission of shame. Paying the money. However, that was just a settlement. That was just a dispute. That was resolved. It was a secret she could keep. She could still play the victim. She chose to save face. She gave a single, sharp nod to her lawyer. "We will pay," Harrison said, his voice tasting like ash. "We will pay the additional sum, but we want this done. Today. Now." "The settlement," Archer said, "is now $50,000. He shared his screen again, this time with the final document. He scrolled to the bottom. "Mr. Harrison, my firm's trust account information is on page 12. I will read the binding terms aloud one final time." His voice filled the call. 1. A wire transfer of $50,000 to be received by my firm no later than 5 p.m. today. 2. A permanent mutual non-disparagement and non-defamation clause. 3. A permanent no-contact clause, prohibiting any direct or indirect communication from Margot, Tessa, Bryn, or Ed Whitaker Garrison to Sloan Whitaker regarding any and all financial, legal, or administrative matters. All future communication will be through legal counsel. 4. A permanent clause barring any future request, demand, or plea for professional or personal services, compensated or otherwise, from your clients to mine. 5. Your clients will bear the full, itemized cost of Ms. Whitaker's legal fees, a separate sum to be invoiced next week. 6. All social media posts, comments, and stories related to this matter, posted by Ms. Tessa Whitaker and Ms. Bryn Whitaker, will be permanently deleted within 2 hours of this call's conclusion. My associate will be monitoring," he finished. "Do you agree to these terms?" Harrison looked at Margot. Her eyes were closed. She gave another short, sharp nod. "We agree," he whispered. "Sloan?" Archer asked. I looked at my mother's frozen, defeated image on the screen, the matriarch who had built a family on my back, the woman who had just paid $15,000 for the right to continue lying to herself. "I choose freedom," I said. "Then let's sign," Archer said. The electronic signature request appeared on my screen. I clicked the box. My name appeared in a clean digital script. A moment later, Margot's signature appeared below mine. It was done. Archer spoke one last time. "This concludes our meeting. The recording is stopped." He ended the call. The 4 boxes vanished. My screen was just my desktop, my empty, clean, minimalist desktop. The war was over. I had won. At 3:17 p.m. that same Friday, a notification appeared on my laptop screen from my bank. Wire deposit received. $50,000. $50,000, not $90,000, not $35, $50, the final, negotiated price of my freedom, including the $15,000 surcharge for their right to maintain their delusion. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt balanced. The ledger was clear. I stared at the number. It was just data. But it was data that represented a profound tectonic shift in my life. It was a transfer of power, made tangible. My other phone, the one I had silenced, was still buzzing. I had turned off all notifications except for my bank and my lawyer, but the screen was a solid, unrelenting log of missed calls. Margot, Tessa, Ed, Bryn, Margot again. It was a frantic, useless chorus. They were still reacting to the legal settlement. They had not yet understood that the legal settlement was the least of their problems. The letter I had sent the night before, the termination of pro bono financial services, was the true declaration of independence. The settlement was an ending. The letter was the beginning of my new terms. The calls were not about the money I had taken. They were about the labor I had withdrawn. They were the frantic, disoriented cries of a system that had just lost its primary energy source. They were, no doubt, panicked calls about the upcoming tax deadlines, the FAFSA forms, the 401k password that Ed had probably already forgotten again. I let the phone buzz. I would not be their emergency contact. I would not be their fixer. I let it vibrate. The sound a dull, angry thrum against the wood of my desk, until the battery finally died. The silence that followed was absolute. It was the sound of a border wall, fully constructed and secured. I turned back to my work, not my work for North Star, my real work, for 2 years. I had been meticulously saving, my passion account, I called it, the money I saved from my bonuses, the money my family thought was an expensive hobby, was actually a business fund. I had been slowly building a plan. The $50,000 was not a windfall, it was an accelerator. I opened a new spreadsheet. I titled it, Studio Launch. I had been scouting locations for months. There was an old industrial complex down by the water, a place called Mariner Yard. It was all brick and steel and century-old timber, filled with woodworkers, glassblowers, and designers. I had my eye on a corner unit on the 3rd floor, 2,000 square feet, concrete floors, and a wall of original 16-foot-high warehouse windows that faced north. The light, even on the grayest Gray Harbor day, was pure, diffused, and perfect. I made 3 calls. The first was to the property manager at Mariner Yard. "I'll take the lease on 305, I said. 3-year term. I can wire the deposit and first month's rent in 20 minutes. The second was to a photography supply warehouse. "I need the full C-stand kit, 3 strobes, the largest softbox you have, 2 V-flats, and a full set of seamless backdrops, gray, white, and black." The third was to the art department of the local community college. I asked for the head of the photography program. "My name is Sloan Whitaker," I said. "I'm opening a commercial studio in Mariner Yard. I need a part-time assistant, someone bright, organized, and who wants to learn the business of photography, not just the art, the business." By 5 p.m., I had a signed lease, a delivery confirmation for my equipment, and 3 interviews scheduled for the following week. The skills that had made me the perfect function for my family, the obsession with logistics, the flawless financial planning, the ability to execute a multi-step plan under pressure, were now being deployed, for the first time, entirely in service of myself. I was building my own house, and this time, I was the sole architect. My work at North Star, the big career they had both envied and leached off of, felt different now. It had been my shield. Now, I wanted it to be a tool, not a cage. On Monday, I met with Catherine, the senior partner who had recommended Archer. "You look different," she said, appraising me over her coffee mug. "I am," I said. I laid out my plan. "I'm opening a studio," I said. "It's my passion, but I'm building it as a business. I don't want to leave North Star. Catherine, I'm too good at what I do, but I can't be an employee, chained to a desk for 60 hours a week. I want to move to a freelance consultant contract, project-based. I'll handle your most complex clients, the hostile divorces, the estate battles, the work no one else wants, but I do it on my own time, from my own office." She didn't hesitate. "Sloan," she said, "I don't care if you do the work from the moon. As long as your analysis is as sharp as it was on my divorce, you can name your terms. A consultant contract is fine. It probably saves us money on benefits." "It's not about the money," I said. "It's about the time." "It's always about the time," she agreed. The studio was a shell, but it was a beautiful one. The light was just as I remembered. I spent a week cleaning the concrete floors myself, painting the non-brick walls a perfect, neutral white, When the equipment arrived, I assembled it with the same methodical care I used to build a financial model. I hired an assistant, a young woman named Maya. She was sharp, eager, and had a raw talent I recognized. "I'm not going to teach you how to take a pretty picture," I told her on her first day. "You can learn that anywhere. I'm going to teach you how to price a job, how to write a contract, how to light for a client who hates their jawline, how to manage a client who is trying to bully you into a discount. I'm going to teach you how to be a professional." "Yes," she said, her eyes wide. "Yes, please." I set up my business, a new LLC, new bank accounts, a robust accounting system. I used a portion of the $50,000 to fund the business account, a healthy 6 months of operating capital. My first client came from a referral from Catherine, a woman named Alyssa Cole, the CEO of a fast-growing local tech firm. She was in her 50s, sharp as a tack, and radiated an energy that was somewhere between impatience and brilliance. "I hate having my picture taken," she announced, walking into the studio. "I look like a banker. Make me not look like a banker." "You don't look like a banker," I said, adjusting a light. "You look like a founder. You look like you're about to make a decision. Let's capture that." We shot for an hour. I didn't pose her. I just talked to her. I asked her about her first ever line of code. I asked her what it felt like to raise her first round of capital. At one point, she was explaining a complex idea, her hands moving, her eyes lit with the fire of her own intellect, and I caught it, the shot. I showed it to her on the monitor. She was silent for a full minute. In the photo, she was not smiling. She was leaning forward, her eyes locked on the lens, every line on her face a testament to her intelligence. She looked powerful. She looked formidable. "My God," she whispered. "That's it. That's the one. You have a very accurate eye. Ms. Whitaker. You don't capture faces. You capture authority." She paid my highest package. She did not ask for a discount. She bought 2 extra prints. A week later, a letter arrived at my apartment. It was on Margot's familiar, cream-colored stationery. My stomach didn't lurch. I felt nothing at all. Just a faint, clinical curiosity. I opened it. It was 2 sentences. "I don't understand what happened. I miss my daughter." It was the old manipulation, the classic victimhood, the attempt to bypass the legal wall with an emotional one. 3 weeks ago, this letter would have undone me. It would have triggered a decade of programmed guilt. I looked at it. I thought about the handwritten note from March. "Don't let Sloan know." I took out my own, new, professional stationery, the kind with my studio's logo embossed at the top. I wrote 1 sentence. "All communication must be directed to my legal counsel." I put it in an envelope and mailed it. I did not open the door. I did not engage. I simply reiterated the boundary. The wall was holding. 2 days later, an email arrived. It was from a curator at the Gray Harbor Center for the Arts. "Dear Ms. Whitaker, I was given your name by Alyssa Cole. She showed me your website. Your architectural work is stunning. We are putting together a juried show for local photographers, and I would be honored if you would submit a portfolio. The theme is structure." My hands, I realized, were perfectly steady. I wrote back, "Thank you. I have a series I'm working on that would be perfect." I knew exactly what the series was. I had been shooting it my whole life, in a way, the way a steel beam joins a brick wall, the way a concrete pillar supports a cantilevered roof, the way a simple, hidden piece of engineering holds the entire, beautiful structure aloft. I opened the folder on my laptop where I kept my passion projects. I created a new subfolder. I named the series Load-Bearing Walls. The exhibition opening was 6 weeks later. It was a cold, clear night. My series, 5 massive, framed black and white prints, hung on the main wall. They looked incredible. Maya was there, beaming. Alyssa Cole was there, and she brought 2 other CEOs with her. Archer Hale was there. I had sent him an invitation. I wasn't sure if he would come. He was standing in front of the largest print, a shot of the underside of a brutalist highway overpass, all concrete and shadow and immense, silent strength. He wasn't looking at it like a lawyer. He was just looking. Mr. Hale, I said, walking up to him. Sloane, he replied, nodding. He was in a suit, as always. He turned his gaze from the print to me. An excellent choice of subject, the silent, essential components, the parts no one notices until they fail. He understood. He saw the metaphor. He saw me. Thank you for coming, Archer, I said. It's a formidable-looking wall, he said, with the faintest hint of a smile. He raised his glass to me in a small salute. It was the only victory speech I would ever need. I stood there, surrounded by my work, by the new life I was building. I reminded myself of the new rules, my personal terms and conditions. 1. Do not speak ill of them. The settlement was binding. But more importantly, my energy was better spent elsewhere. They were no longer my problem. 2. Do not, under any circumstances, revert to free support. Do not answer the call. Do not reset the password. Do not fix the crisis. 3. Do not rescue. Their choices, their consequences. I had already set aside a portion of the settlement money, not for a vacation, not for a car. I had transferred $5,000 into a new account. I called it the Maya Fund. I was going to use it to pay for my assistant's apprenticeship, to give her the leg up I never had. The money they stole, the money I won back, would be used to fund the next generation of women who knew their worth. That night, I went home to my quiet, clean apartment. I looked at the new rules I had written, not in a spreadsheet, but in my journal. The phone did not ring. No one was demanding anything from me. The only sound was the faint hum of the city. I got into bed, and for the first time since I was a child, I slept through the entire night. A month passed. The load-bearing walls exhibit was a quiet success. I sold 3 of the 5 prints, 1 to Alyssa Cole and 2 to an architectural firm based in the city. The studio was running. I had shot headshots for 2 more local business owners, and Maya was proving to be an invaluable, organized, and creative assistant. The $50,000 sat in my business account, a silent testament to the battle, but I had not touched it. I was building this, my new life, on my own earnings. The settlement was a firewall, not a foundation. Life had settled into a new, quiet rhythm, defined by the boundaries I had built. My phone was silent. My email was clean. Then, one Tuesday, a message. It was on Instagram. From the Harbor Whistle account. The account had been dormant since the day of the settlement. I felt a small, cold jolt. The message was one sentence. I need to see you, in person. My mind raced. Who was this person? This ghost who had handed me the axe? Why now? What more could there be? I typed back, "Where?" The reply was immediate. The coffee shop in Cold Spring. Halfway between us. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., I'll be in the back booth. Cold Spring, not Gray Harbor, not the city, neutral territory. I agreed. The next morning, I drove. The cafe was a small, anonymous place on a main street. I walked in, the bell over the door jingling. I scanned the room, and my blood froze. Sitting in the back booth, his hands wrapped around a black coffee mug, was Ed. My stepfather, the enabler, the man who had shouted at me to not be rude to my mother, the man who had falsely accused me of locking his retirement account. My first thought was that it was a trap, that Margot was waiting in the car, that this was some new, desperate plea for a healing talk. I almost turned and walked out. He looked up and saw me. He didn't smile. He just looked, exhausted. He looked older than he had at the dinner table, his face gray and drawn. He motioned to the seat opposite him. I did not sit down. I stood by the table, my bag still on my shoulder. "What is this, Ed?" "Please, Sloane, sit. Just 5 minutes." I sat, but on the very edge of the vinyl bench, I did not take my coat off. "It was you," I said. It wasn't a question. It was a dazed, flat realization. You were Harbor Whistle. He nodded, staring into his coffee. It was me. "I don't understand," I said. You were there. You told me I was out of line. You said it was a family decision." "I know," he said, his voice low, gravelly. "I know what I said. That was the role I play. The one I have played for 20 years. The protector, the peacekeeper, the one who backs Margot's plays. No matter what. Just to keep the house from exploding." He finally looked up. His eyes were bloodshot. "I'm not a good man, Sloane, but I couldn't do it anymore." "Do what?" Watch her manipulate everyone. It wasn't just this. With your grandmother's money, it's everything. It's how she pits Tessa against Bryn. It's how she uses Bryn's art to make Tessa feel uncreative, and uses Tessa's children to make Bryn feel like a failure. And it's how she uses you, the capable one, the one she resents because she needs you so much. He took a shaky breath. "I was so tired. Sloane, just so tired of the game." "The handwritten note," I said, my mind working, the pieces clicking into a terrible new formation. "The one from March. How did you get it?" "She left it on her desk," Ed said, a hollow-sounding laugh. "Her home office. She's gotten arrogant. She thinks no one would dare look. I took a picture of it, months ago. I didn't know what I would do with it. I kept it. I told myself it was insurance, in case one day she went too far." "And the video?" I asked. "The one of the pinned message? You were in the core chat." "Of course I was," he said. "I'm part of the core, the silent, nodding member." He shook his head. "That was the night after you left the house, the night you sent the first lawyer's letter. She was panicking, pacing the kitchen, on the phone with Tessa, planning the smear campaign. She pinned the message, telling them all to hold the line, that the money would be transferred. I just snapped. I went upstairs, got my tablet, and I came down and I filmed her phone while she was in the bathroom. I felt disgusting, like a spy. But I knew you needed it. I knew a screenshot wouldn't be enough." He had been my anonymous, high-level source. He had been standing in the room with them, watching them plot, all while secretly documenting their conspiracy. He had played the enabler, right up until the end. "When I called you," I said, "about the 401k, when you accused me of locking you out, that was real," he said, his face flushing with a deep, painful shame. "I really couldn't log in. I forgot the password you set, and my first, ingrained instinct, the one Margot has trained into all of us, was to assume you were the hostile actor, that you were retaliating. It wasn't until you read the password back to me, so calmly, that I realized I was the fool. I was the one who had bought into the Sloane is the villain story. Even as I was trying to help you, I hung up. I was so ashamed." He pushed a small brown envelope across the table. It was thick. "What's this?" "The original legal pad pages," he said. I went back and took them, and a memory card, with more. Other notes she's written, other plans. I don't know if they're useful, but I wanted you to have them, so you know you were right." I didn't touch the envelope. "I am sorry, Sloane," he said, the words barely audible, "for shouting at you at that dinner, for all the years I just sat there and let her use you. I was a coward." I looked at him, the man who had been my stepfather since I was 10. I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel the urge to forgive him. I felt nothing but the cold, clear acknowledgement of a fact. He was a weak man who, in one critical moment, had found just enough strength to do the right thing, for his own reasons. "You told the truth," I said. "That's all that matters. Thank you for the evidence, Ed." "There's one more thing," he said, unable to meet my eyes. "The other reason I asked you here." He took a deep breath. "I'm leaving her. Sloane, I'm leaving Margot." This was the twist I hadn't seen. He wasn't just a whistleblower, he was a defector. "The company I've been with for 15 years. Margot's brother-in-law is on the board. My job was never really mine. It was always part of the family. I stay. I keep my mouth shut. I get a good salary. I can't be in that house anymore. I'm starting over. I'm putting my resume out. Which is, well, this is difficult. He finally looked at me, his eyes pleading. I need a professional headshot. For my LinkedIn profile. My old one is 10 years old. I saw the work you did for that CEO. Alyssa Cole. It was powerful. I was wondering if I could hire you to take my picture. I will pay. Of course, your full rate, whatever it is. This was the test. The old Sloane would have been pulled in by the drama, by the poor Ed narrative, and done it for free. The new Sloane was a business owner. My assistant, Maya, handles all my bookings, I said, my voice polite, neutral. I have an opening Tuesday morning at 10. She will send you the standard contract and the invoice for the session fee. I'll see you at the studio. His shoulders slumped in relief. It was clean. It was professional. It was not family. Thank you, Sloane, he said. Thank you. I nodded. I picked up the brown envelope, put it in my bag, and walked out of the coffee shop. A week later, a stranger walked into my studio. My exhibit was down, but I had one of the load-bearing walls prints, the large one of the highway overpass, hanging on the main wall. Maya, I have an appointment, a woman's voice said. I came out from the back. The woman was in her late 70s, impeccably dressed. She had sharp, intelligent eyes that were appraising everything, from the light to the concrete floors to the print on the wall. I don't have an appointment, she said, looking at me. My name is Darlene Quist. The name meant nothing to me. You are Sloane Whitaker, she said. You have your grandmother's eyes. My breath hitched. You knew Genevieve? Knew her? Darlene let out a sharp laugh. We were business partners for 30 years. I'm the Quist of Alder and Quist Properties. I'm the one who taught her how to read a balance sheet, and she's the one who taught me how to spot a lie. She walked right up to my print. Load-bearing walls. A good title. Genevieve always said you were the only one in that family who understood the bones of things, the part that does the actual work. I was speechless. I came for a reason, Darlene said, turning to me. I saw your exhibit. I saw your name. I knew it had to be you. I'm an old woman, Ms. Whitaker, and I don't like loose ends. I need to tell you something your grandmother told me. She sat in the client chair, as if she owned it. That $90,000 from her trust. It wasn't family money. I gripped the edge of my desk. What do you mean? I mean it was for you, Darlene said, her voice sharp as a knife. I was at lunch with her, 6 months before her stroke. She was furious. She said, Margot and the girls are treating Sloane like a pack mule. They're going to bleed her dry. She's the only one of them with a head for numbers, and they're using her to clean up their messes. Darlene leaned forward. This is what she told me. She said, I'm setting up a discretionary fund in the trust. I'm giving Margot the authority, but I'm telling her, in no uncertain terms, that money is for Sloane. It's for her to build something of her own. That photography business she's too scared to start. It's Sloane's seed money. She trusted Margot to do the right thing. The air left my lungs. It wasn't just that they had cut me out of my 1/3 share. It was that they had all stolen the entire amount that was meant only for me. The sole discretion clause wasn't a flaw. It was a test, a final test of my mother's character, and she had failed. She didn't just exclude me, I whispered. She stole it. Yes, Darlene said. She did, and Genevieve, bless her cynical heart, suspected she might. It wasn't legally binding. She knew Margot would fight it in probate and tie you up for years. But she wrote down her intent, a moral, not a legal, document, and she gave me a copy. In case, she said, Sloane ever needs to know she isn't crazy. Darlene Quist opened her expensive leather handbag and pulled out a single, folded piece of stationery. It was my grandmother's personal, Cream-colored paper. I unfolded it. The handwriting was unmistakable. Darlene, if I'm not here, you remember this? The nest egg in the discretionary fund is for Sloan. She's the only one with the head to make it grow. The others, they just know how to spend. Make sure Sloan knows her work is worth something. G.A. I sank into my own chair. The note clutched in my hand. I didn't cry. A profound, cold, and absolute validation washed over me. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't dramatic. I wasn't difficult. I was right. May I scan this? I asked, my voice hoarse. It's why I'm here, she said. I walked to my scanner. I saved the file. Genevieve Intent, PDF. I put it in the evidence folder, in a new subfolder titled Validation. I didn't need it for a lawsuit. I didn't need to fight them again. I had already won. This was for me. This was the receipt that closed the emotional ledger, for good. The next day, I checked Tessa's Facebook page. The family is everything post was gone. I checked Bryn's Instagram. The teary-eyed artist and the toxic person story had vanished. The legal agreement was holding. That afternoon, a new email. My stomach didn't even flutter. It was from Bryn. Subject: Tax consultation request. Hi Sloan, I am in the process of starting my studio and I need to file for an LLC and figure out my quarterly estimated taxes. I know you're busy, but I would like to hire you for a 1-hour consultation. Please let me know what your hourly rate is. I read it twice. She was trying to follow the new rules. She was offering to pay. The old Sloan would have seen this as an olive branch, a way to fix things. The new Sloan saw it as a landmine. I typed my reply. Dear Bryn, thank you for your inquiry. Due to the terms of our recent legal agreement and a fundamental conflict of interest, I am unable to provide you or any member of the family with professional services. I wish you the best of luck in your new business venture. Here is a list of 3 qualified CPAs in the Gray Harbor area who are currently accepting new clients. I am sure any one of them can assist you. Sincerely, Sloan. I hit send. I had not been cruel. I had not been emotional. I had been a professional. Declining a job and referring the work. The boundary was clean. That night, as I was closing the studio, my phone rang. The name flashed on the screen. Margot. My finger hovered over the screen. She was in direct violation of the no contact clause. She was testing the wall. I didn't decline the call. That was an action. That was an engagement. I just pressed the volume button, silencing the ring. I watched the screen as her name flashed. Again and again, in the dark. I felt nothing. It was just a name. It was just a notification. I let it ring until it stopped, and then I went home. The fence was electrified. The border was secure. The invitation, when it came, was a violation. It arrived not as a text or a call. Those channels were legally severed, but as a formal, forwarded email from Archer. Mr. Hale. My client, Margot Whitaker, would like to propose a final, non-legal meeting. She is inviting Sloan to the family home for dinner this Wednesday. She is not asking as a trustee, but as a mother. She is hoping for a path to reconciliation and closure. Archer had forwarded it to me with a single line. This is outside the scope of our agreement. You are under no obligation to attend. Let me know how you wish to respond. I stared at the email. As a mother, reconciliation. These were the old, poisoned words. The old, baited traps. A normal person would have deleted it. A normal person would have instructed Archer to send a cease and desist. But I am not a normal person. I am an auditor. They had not understood. The no-contact clause was not a shield for me. It was a containment protocol for them. I was not afraid of them. I was simply done. My work concluded. This invitation was not a threat. It was an audit query. They were, in effect, asking for a final presentation of the findings. I wrote back to Archer. Please inform opposing counsel that I will attend. Wednesday, 7 p.m. I spent Wednesday at my studio. I shot the headshots for Ed. He had arrived exactly on time, paid his invoice in full, and was a model client. He was quiet, subdued, and seemed grateful. We did not speak of the family. We spoke of f-stops and focal lengths. I gave him exactly what he paid for, a portrait of a man who looked competent, seasoned, and ready to work. When he left, he shook my hand. "Thank you, Sloane, for this." I simply nodded. That evening, I did not drive to Gray Harbor in a state of rage or anxiety. I felt nothing at all. I drove as if I were attending a quarterly review for a defunct client. I packed a thin leather portfolio. Inside, I placed one copy of the fully executed $50,000 settlement agreement, one copy of the termination of pro bono services letter, one copy of the signed contract from Melissa Cole's firm, and one printed invitation to the Load-Bearing Walls exhibition. It was all I needed. I arrived at 7 p.m. on the dot. I walked up the cracked path, the smell of the house hitting me before I even reached the door, that familiar, cloying scent of Margot's lavender-scented candles, a smell I now associated with ambush and manipulation. I did not use my old key. I rang the doorbell. Bryn opened it. She looked pale and thinner. The suffering artist look was no longer a pose. It seemed to be a genuine and unfortunate reality. "Sloane," she breathed, as if she were seeing a ghost. "Bryn," I said, my voice neutral. I walked past her into the entryway. They were all there, arranged in the living room, not the kitchen. It was a clear attempt to signal a different, more formal dynamic. Margot was on the sofa, Tessa beside her, a protective shield. Ed was in his usual armchair, separate from them, staring into the cold fireplace. "Sloane," Margot said, her voice trembling, attempting a smile. She stood up, her hands clasped together. "Thank you for coming. I know things have been difficult, but you're here. That's what matters. Family is what matters, above all." It was her opening gambit, the old script, the one that had worked for 30 years. "Boundaries are what matter first, Margot," I said. My voice was quiet, but it was not the voice of her daughter. It was the voice of the woman who had signed the lease on Mariner Yard. I did not sit down. I walked to the coffee table and placed my leather portfolio on it. Tessa bristled immediately. "See? This is what you do. Mom is trying to be nice, and you come in here with that tone, and a briefcase. Who brings a briefcase to a family dinner?" "This isn't a family dinner, Tessa," I said. "This is a post-settlement clarification meeting. I am here because you seem to be confused about the new terms of our relationship." "There are no terms," Margot cried, the tremor in her voice increasing. "We're a family. We're not corporations. That money, it's been paid. Archer confirmed it. It's done. It's over. We can just move on. We can be a family again." I placed my hand on the portfolio. "I agree. It is done." I opened it. I took out the first document and slid it onto the coffee table. The settlement agreement. "This is what moving on looks like," I said. "This is our new relationship. It is defined, in perpetuity, by these 10 pages. It is defined by the non-disparagement clause. It is defined by the no-contact clause, which, I should note, this dinner is in direct violation of, and it is defined by the non-solicitation of services clause." Tessa scoffed. "You really think you can just file us away?" "Yes," I said. Margot looked at the document, her face contorting. "You did this," she whispered, her voice thick with her favorite emotion, betrayal. "You came in here, with your lawyers and your coldness, and for what? For your little hobby? That temporary little studio?" Her final weapon, condescension, the dismissal of my passion as a little hobby. I smiled. It was a thin, cold, clinical smile. I reached into the portfolio. I took out the other documents and laid them on the table like a winning hand in poker. "My hobby?" I asked. I tapped the first paper. "This is the contract for the executive portraits for Alyssa Cole's entire leadership team. That's the first firm. This," I tapped the next. Is the contract to shoot the new portfolio for the Gray Harbor Architectural Group. That's the second. And this. I slid the glossy cardstock invitation to her. Was my invitation to the juried gallery show, my hobby, Margot, is now a business with a 6-month waiting list. It is paying for my life, my assistant, and my rent. It is, in fact, what I am. I looked at her. The question was never if my hobby was worth it. The question was whether you were. Tessa stood up. She was flushed with the familiar, self-righteous anger she always mistook for a moral compass. This is disgusting. You come in here and you flaunt this? After what you did? You just need to learn. Sloane, you need to learn how to forgive. Family is about forgiveness. Tessa, I said, my voice cutting her off cleanly. If you require consultation or advice on the subjects of ethics or forgiveness, I strongly suggest you pay for the services of a qualified therapist or a member of the clergy. My services are not available. My words, the echo of my email to Bryn, hit her like a physical slap. She sat down, her mouth open, speechless. Bryn, from her corner, finally spoke. Her voice was a bare whisper. I wanted to say, I'm sorry. Sloane, I really am. I'm sorry if what I did, if it hurt you. It was the closest I would ever get to an admission. The old Sloane would have wept, would have rushed over, would have said, I know, it's okay. Let's fix this. I looked at her, the fragile artist, the designated victim. I acknowledge your statement, Bryn, I said. That was all. I did not forgive. I did not absolve. I did not comfort. I simply, factually, acknowledged that a sound had left her mouth. Her eyes widened. Looking for more, there was nothing. The well was dry. I turned to Ed. He was still staring at the fireplace. He had not said a word. He met my gaze, just for a second. He gave one, small, almost imperceptible nod. It was a thank you. It was an acknowledgement that his portrait was shot. His file was closed, and he was, in his own way, free. The silence in the room was absolute, a vacuum, and into this vacuum, Margot finally, completely, shattered. Look at this, she wept, her hands covering her face. Just look at what you've done. You've destroyed us. You've torn this family apart. All of this, for what? For money? For pride? I've lost my daughter. I've lost my daughter. This was it. The final card. The ultimate guilt. The accusation that I, the ungrateful child, had chosen a ledger over a mother's love. I zipped my leather portfolio. The sound was loud, definitive. I stood up straight. You haven't lost your daughter, Margot, I said. She looked up, her face a mess of tears, clinging to the smallest hope of retraction. I let the silence hang, and then I delivered the final audit. You lost your free service. You lost your unpaid financial advisor. You lost your pro bono tax preparer, your on-call IT support, and your family's administrative assistant. You lost the function, the one you've been exploiting for 10 years. You didn't lose your daughter. I paused, picking up my portfolio. As for me, I said, looking at all of them, one last time, I just got myself back. I turned, I walked out of the living room, through the entryway. I did not run, I did not cry. I opened the front door. The air outside was cold, sharp, and clean. It smelled of the ocean, of the salt from the Gray Harbor Bay. It was the smell of freedom. I closed the door behind me. I did not slam it. I closed it, and the lock clicked into place, a final, definitive sound. I was halfway to my car when my phone vibrated in my pocket. I pulled it out. For a second, I thought it might be one of them, a final, frantic, useless plea. But it wasn't. It was an email notification from the gallery that hosted my exhibit. Subject, FWD, Acquisition Inquiry, Sloane. Congratulations. The Gray Harbor City Archive would like to formally acquire load-bearing wall 1 and load-bearing wall 3. for their permanent collection. They are offering the full listed price. Please advise. I stopped. I looked up. The street was dark, but I could see the glow of the town in the distance. I looked back at the house. The curtains were drawn, but the light from inside, that warm, yellow, toxic light, was visible. Then I looked down the road, toward the highway, toward the city, toward my studio. I put my phone back in my pocket. I got in my car. I did not look back. I drove away. The streetlights of Gray Harbor dragging across my windshield. Long, clean lines of light, like the structures that hold up a roof, pulling me forward. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know your thoughts, so please comment below and let me know where in the world you're listening from. It's amazing to see how far these stories travel. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe to Lila Revenge Stories and like the video, and for extra support, hit that hype button to help this story get heard by more people.